Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, OTG's finest, Kory, Waldron, and Jack Manuell. What's up, guys?
Let's talk Wiz Nation, fellas.
You know, I'm hoping to find a little more I don't want to use that. It's okay. Wizards are magical. We're looking for a little more magic.
Wizards magic. I get the confusion.
John Wall definitely makes magic on the court, so we'll be talking about him a lot today. But like you mentioned, Jack, we're talking Wiz Nation today. Number 7, Washington Wizards. Before we talk about the ranking, let's talk about last season. You know, almost a 50-win team, 49 wins, 33 losses. What were your thoughts on this team from last year?
I think last season, Nick, is going to be the year, remember, that the Wizards became a legitimate contender in the East. The hiring of Scott Brooks before the season was an inspired move, took the young backcourt to the next level. He was in running for the coach of the year himself. I reckon he was, he could have seen himself as a bit unlucky not to win it. There were teething problems early on. They started with the 2-8 record. Everyone was doubting them, the hiring of Scott Brooks and why they sacked Randy Whitman. But in that time, they've recently maxed out Otto Porter. He was a real bright spot. He provided the team with a really capable third option. On the back of that poor start, they eventually rallied and they had 17 home wins, which was a league best. And they had that infamous funeral game against the Celtics, which was a season highlight. But, they could have easily made the Eastern Conference Finals, had Wall and Beal, had some, backup on the bench. But, it was all to no avail in the end.
Yeah, last season was the first time we were able to see what a healthy Washington Wizards unit can do. Bradley Beal was able to stay on the court for a majority of the games, playing 77. We saw Otto Porter Jr. play 80 games and make that max money deal. We saw John Wall. I think finally we're in the discussions is John Wall the best point guard in the East? Is he top 3 in the league? John Wall put his name pretty much from last season into that debate. The Wizards bench is suspect at times. Even this upcoming year, we'll probably mention how, it's not anything special, but those starters, they play big minutes and they got it done. They went head to head with LeBron James and the Cavaliers a few times. The Wizards are definitely a threat in the East.
Yeah, you guys kind of touched on all the points I wanted to mention. Last year they finally established themselves as one of these good teams in the East. At points people were looking at them, maybe this is a team that could compete with the Cavs a little bit, not beat them, but put up a better matchup than the Celtics. I know that was a thought. You mentioned last year, Kory, health was huge. That was the first season ever that Bradley Beal played more than 75 games. So to see him healthy and get some consistency, I think that really helped. And like you mentioned, John Wall, I'm a big John Wall guy, and I was high on him early on in the season. By the end of the year, I think it was easy to say he was the best point guard in the East. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I reckon he's become the East's version of Russell Westbrook. He's got that persona, that chip on his shoulder. He's got that new max contract, which Russ also signed today. I'm all in on Wallstar. My boy back home, who I host JBT with, also named Nick, he's got a John Wall jersey. He's got sweaters. He's got hats. He's all about John Wall, and he's got me in on that bandwagon. Yeah, I'm a big Wallstar fan. And the difference between him and Westbrook, and this is going to sound sacrilege, but he actually makes his teammates better, whereas Russell Westbrook makes the team overall better with his individual play. But I think Wall influences his teammates in a more positive way, if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense. His playmaking is different. Westbrook is kind of like a handoff, like I'm attacking, I'm still the vocal point of the offense, while John Wall has more of that Chris Paul type mentality where I'm going to get my other guys involved and going more so than myself.
Yeah, one thing about Wall, I think we saw it last year in the playoffs at one point, he might not hit a shot, but at least he can set up his teammates and rack up the assists. So that's always something positive. I'm a big fan of his. He's a good two-way player too. He can defend the position, which is something that's very underrated. A team that did get it to the second round of the playoffs, like you mentioned, Jack, maybe a bigger game from the bench. In that Celtics series, they lose in 7. What were your thoughts on that series, and what could they have done differently to win?
Look, I think John Wall ran out of gas. I think that was the big thing. When the playoffs come down to the crunch, we saw the same in the West with James Harden. He didn't have the adequate backup. They only played like a 7-8-man rotation, the Houston Rockets. And the Wizards were probably even weaker in terms of their reserves. So it was all left to really John Wall and that starting 5 to sort of produce the goods. And, there are nights. The one thing I do respect about Wall is he's not going to go out there and die without trying. He's going to leave it all on the line, and he put up a lot of magnificent performances. But at the same time, the Celtics just had too much depth overall. I think the individual talent and the starting fives were definitely comparable. And for me, I would have taken John Wall over Isaiah Thomas, across 7 games. But Isaiah just had his sheer will in that playoffs was just unimaginable, especially with all the grief that he was going through. It was just a Herculean performance from him. So he took the cake, and the Wizards will live to fight another day.
Yeah, they were just a few. The bench was the big difference, like you mentioned, Jack. The Celtics, and obviously their roster is completely different from that team that the Wizards faced last year. Their depth last year. I mean, their starting five was, you took out the starting five and the backup five could play some valuable minutes between, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, Kelly Olynyk, Gerald Green. I mean, all those guys had huge minutes, especially in that Wizards series. Isaiah Thomas going through everything that he went. It was just a little bit too much for the Wizards to overcome. But even still, with the new head coach, everyone being healthy, it was a great year of showing what the Wizards will be going forward.
Yeah, some great experience, and I think you guys kind of hit it on the head when you said the bench and the lack of depth, and Wall looked a little bit gassed, and they just weren't getting much out of the guys on the bench, and they didn't really do much to improve that this year. We'll talk about it a little bit, but let's talk highlight of the Wizards last season. What was the highlight? Player, play.
For me, I've got the Wall star. His player performance in that Game 6 against Boston, where he had a slow first half, but then he scored 23 points in the second half. And he had that dagger game-winning 3 over Avery Bradley, who was pestering him all night. And I remember I was actually watching this game while I was in America with my girlfriend at her parents' place, watching it with her dad, and we both lost it. And we were watching all the NBA TV, all the interviews afterwards. It was a nice moment.
I'm going with my Florida Gator, Bradley Beal. Seeing, like you mentioned, Nick, first time playing over 75 games, first time in 2 years playing over 65 games. It was really good just to see John Wall have, another guard out there consistently, healthy, someone who he can pass the ball off to. He shot 40% from 3 last season, 48% from the field, averaged a career high 23.1 points per game. His career high before this was only 17.4. So that's a big jump in scoring numbers. And that's another kid who's only 23 years old, going to be 24.
Yeah. I mean, the easy choice right here is to go with the backcourt. Be just either guy, both had big years. Like you mentioned, Wall kind of established himself as an elite guard. Bradley Beal finally stayed healthy and kind of showed off that scoring punch. For me, I'm going to go with John Wall, though. I think anytime when you establish yourself as, probably the best player at your position in your conference, that's a huge deal. And I think moving forward, he can still even get a little bit better, especially with that shot. Every year he's going to get a little bit more consistent from 3, and that's going to be big for the Wizards. Biggest disappointment of the Wizards season.
I consulted my boy Nick Busing, co-host of JBT, a lot for this because he's a big Wizards fan, and he gave me a few points. He was severely disappointed by the play of Trey Burke. Thought he had a decent amount of promise coming into the season, but he was, to put it in his words, he was just trash throughout. And I mean, that could be extended to the entire reserves, apart from, maybe Kelly Oubre. But then again, his stats didn't improve that much, but his play and, on the eye test, he looked pretty good. So, the entire reserves were trash for me.
I'm gonna go with Gortat in the playoffs.
Yeah,
because he was.
You stole mine, Kory.
This damn system. Gortat was decent in regular season. This is a guy who, he's nicknamed the Polish Hammer, a top 5 nickname for sure. A guy who averaged, 10 points, 10 rebounds. The guy is a very good traditional center. He doesn't have a great jump shot. He does not have a 3-point shot. He's rather slow. He's getting a little bit up there in age. And in the playoffs, man, against a Celtics team that struggles rebounding wise, Gortat just looked ineffective. I know he said he wanted more touches and he wanted to be more of a vocal point in the offense, but I mean, he was missing layups at some point. So I'm not sure, what he is seeing on the court that we don't see. But for me, he was a disappointment.
Yeah, your disappointments are kind of correlated in a sense, and it's kind of ironic. Early in the season, Gortat called out the Wizards bench, pretty much saying they were trash. And then later in the playoffs, Gortat can't even hit a layup, like you said, Kory. So, I mean, I think both are great choices, but I'm going with Gortat in the playoffs just because, you call out your team early in the year, and then you have those situations where there's plenty of opportunities for you to kind of succeed and have an impact on the game. If you want more touches, especially in those situations, go get some more offensive rebounds and make some more layups, and you'll get more touches. Don't complain about it.
Yeah, funnily enough, at media day the other day, he was asked by reporters about like his mindset going into the season, and you know the general state of centers, and he seems to have come to the fact, to the realization that you know his time is limited in the NBA. He's only got a couple of years left, so he's not really that bothered about the touches, about running the play through him. He doesn't seem to have that Dwight Howard mentality. So hopefully he can keep that mentality and be sort of a more complementary piece. Maybe the pick and roll. Get some big bodies under there, start to rebound, use his strengths, like you were saying, Nick. Get some offensive boards, but we'll have to wait and see because a lot of things are set at media days.
He did play 82 games last year, which is also good. I mean, he played 82 games the year before as well. And Ian Mahimi missed a ton of time last year. I think he only played in 25 games. So I think maybe having another backup center too will take the load off him. So I think just in the playoffs, he kind of must have been worn down, in my opinion, just from having to play all the minutes during the regular season as well.
And I think he lost a step. I think his lateral quickness is obviously not there. His rim protection isn't what it used to be. So like you said, Kory, I think Jan Mahimni will kind of help them and hopefully stay healthy this year and give him some good minutes. But let's talk about this ranking. We're in the top 10 now. Our writers picked the Wizards to be at number 7 in our top 10. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's too high, too low? What?
Well, I think it's around the mark. It's ahead of teams like the T-Wolves and the Bucks who could, outrank them come the end of the season. Who knows what could happen with Giannis. I know you boys had a good chat about him. And with the T-Wolves as well, there's a lot of questions about them. But overall, I think this is probably the elite East team. So I think they're going to be thereabouts coming into the season. So I think this is pretty on point.
Yeah, this would be the third best team so far in the East by our power rankings done here. I think that's pretty fair at 7.
What do you guys think about the Markieff Morris injury? I believe he was injured prior to training camp. He'll probably miss a few weeks of the season. How much do you think that'll hurt them?
Yeah, I think it's going to hurt them quite a bit. He provides them a lot at that power forward position. He's also a really good locker room presence, really good teammate. And we've mentioned their depth before. They haven't really added a lot. I think Mike Scott, who we'll talk about a bit, will be asked to step up. But Mike Scott in today's NBA playing big minutes isn't really a good thing. But it's better than we're having these injuries like when we're talking about Malik Monk on the Charlotte pod. You're better off having these injuries now than come late in the season. There's been Porzingis, there's been LeBron's tweaked an ankle. You'd rather have these minor injuries now, get them out of the way, and then hopefully be fresh come January, February, March, and April.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely don't want to get hurt when it's playoff time.
The only benefit too is I'm looking at their schedule to start the season. They don't have a really tough schedule to open the season. They're playing against several teams that didn't even make the playoffs, and they have a game against the Warriors on the 27th of October, the Cavs on the 3rd of November. But they're playing, they play the Hawks on the 11th, so that's a good game. But I think they'll be okay. I think obviously, like you guys mentioned with the depth issue, there's not a lot of guys on this bench who can pick up some slack because they're missing Markieff Morris. I'm guessing Oubre will get some more minutes on small ball 4. And like you mentioned, Jack, Mike Scott will probably get some minutes. But, as long as it's not more than 2 weeks, I don't think it will be anything serious.
I think it's going to be more than 2 weeks. I believe it was in September, with like late September reported, and it's supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, well, I mean, missing a month is going to hurt a little bit just because of depth. But I don't think it's going to be anything where the Wizards are going to – they'll probably still be a 5 or 6 seed when he comes back in the early playoff race.
Long as it doesn't linger, I don't think it'll have a huge impact. I might drop the ranking like a spot or two just because I think it'll cut off a few wins. If they're fully healthy, they can compete with the elite teams, even in the West, at least have a chance to win the game. Without Markieff Morris with that depth, I think that could be an issue because he does play a good chunk of minutes too. And that could be something that it could help them in the long run because they have to play other guys and they have to get experience, but it also could hurt them in the win column. But let's talk offseason. I believe this is maybe the only team or the second team we've talked about that didn't have a draft pick at all. They traded their first-round pick to the Nets in the Bojan Bogdanovic trade. They traded their second-round pick for Tim Frazier, who we'll talk about right now. And, that was a pretty good pickup with your second-round pick, considering you're not going to get a point guard that could play at the level he's going to play probably instantly for you as the backup.
Yeah, it's a perfect pick. For the pick number 52 that they traded him to the Pelicans for, their backup point guard position was a real weakness last year. They tried Brandon Jennings there. They tried Trey Burke there. Satoransky was probably their best piece as a young European guard. But I liked the Tim Frazier addition a lot. Him sharing the minutes with Satoransky, I think he can add a lot, ease the load off John Wall, which would certainly help. And he can do some nice things. In the absence of Holiday and stretches last season, he even started for the Pelicans at points. If you see an injury to John Wall, albeit minor, or they decide to rest him for a few games, he's proven in the past that he can start and run the floor.
No, Tim Frazier is a very good pickup for them. I mean, the last 3-4 years they've gone through, it feels like almost two handfuls of backup point guards. You know, they've been looking for somebody to back up John Wall. Brandon Jennings last year didn't really work out. Trey Burke obviously was a little bit of a disappointment. Raymond Sessions was okay for the years they had him. Andre Miller. I mean, they've been a ton of backup point guards in Washington. Tim Frazier's still rather young, maybe 27. I think last year too he had 1 or 2 triple doubles. You know, he's a pretty good point guard, especially coming off the bench. I think this is a really good move for them. Like you said, Nick, it's a second-round draft pick they got rid of.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head too, is the fact that they haven't had good backup point guards. You know, the Trey Burke thing didn't work out. Brandon Jennings had a few good games, but then he had other games where he looked terrible. So I think Tim Frazier gives him stability. You know, he's not necessarily an amazing player. You're not gonna be like, oh my God, Tim Frazier, but you know, he's somebody they can bring in and kind of keep things running smooth, and that's something they haven't had they didn't have last season or probably the year before that. Signing wise, you know, we'll talk off-season signings, we'll talk re-signing in a second. They picked up Jody Meeks, Mike Scott. Both these guys have had decent moments in the NBA, but they've also had bad moments. You know, Jody Meeks, he has trouble staying healthy. Mike Scott had the whole off-the-court issue, and he never really got back to the level he was playing at when I think the Hawks had the 60-win season. He was a big bench piece. So both these guys have potential, but they haven't been consistent in the NBA.
Yeah, it's a good point, but I think the punt is worth it, Nick, because Jody Meeks on a 2-year, 6.7, almost a $7 million per year contract, it is nothing. It's bugger all. And when he was playing last year, he shot only a tad under 41% from three last season, which is elite. He was unlucky with injuries, but you know, if he can actually stay healthy, he spreads the floor nicely and could be a decent backup for Beal. And with Mike Scott, you know, he pick him up for the vet minimum, you know, add some depth to their bench, and you know, he might play some minutes on with Kelly Oubre at that 4 position in the absence of Markieff Morris, but you know, can stretch the floor a little bit. You know, he can be a real liability on the defensive end, but you know, can provide a nice scoring punch.
I mean, they're hoping to get 2013, 2014 Lakers Jody Meek. You know, the guy who averaged 15.7 per game, shooting 40% from 3. Hopefully Jody Meeks, like you said, Nick, can stay on the court. He's obviously been banged up the last couple of years, which is not good for a guy going towards 30. But if they can get a 3-point shooter off the bench, I mean, they got Bogdanovich last year, as we briefly mentioned. We'll talk about in a second. But, you know, he really wasn't that 3-point punch they were hoping to get off the bench. And hopefully Jody Meeks can supply that.
Yeah, it's, you know, they're pretty much hoping that maybe one of these guys works out. They don't probably need both of them to have big seasons, but, you know, if Jody Meeks is healthy and you can give them that shooter, somebody else to space the floor and just make it that much more difficult to defend John Wall, great. You know, they have Mike Scott. He has a good season. They have somebody who can play that stretch 4 and kind of sub in from Markieff Morris, especially if he's out for more than a month. So I think that's something positive, and it's kind of just like a coin flip. You know, maybe they'll work out, maybe they won't. We didn't risk big money. It's kind of a good move, especially with their cap being so strapped, because my Brooklyn Nets, Jack's Brooklyn Nets, offered Otto Porter an offer sheet, max money, and the Wizards matched that deal. So what were your thoughts when the Wizards matched? Did you think they were going to match, or do you think they were going to let the Nets have Otto Porter?
No, I think they're always going to match, and the Kings also put it out there as well, putting the max offer out to him and his agency. As a Nets fan, I'm kind of glad that we didn't give him the max, because I'm sort of happy with what we've got now, and we don't have, you know, the salary cap flexibility per se, but we have a bit more now without Otto Porter. I just think that Otto Porter had a great season last year, but what does he have that many more levels to his game to increase? Maybe on the defensive end, he can probably improve and become a bit more active there, a bit more elite on that end. But, you know, he was lights out from 3. I don't see that happening 2 years in a row. So as a Nets fan, I'm happy. But at the same time, the Wizards were a bit hamstrung. I think, you know, they sort of had to keep this core together, keep that continuity. but it certainly has left them hamstrung a little bit, in terms of picking up any other deals, because there's no other. There was rumors that they wanted to go after Paul George, even though John Wallace said, he doesn't want any super teams, apparently. I think he forgot that they were going after Paul George. But then they signed Otto Porter. But I do like it for the Wizards because I think he fits perfectly there and they will get the best out of him.
It's funny, George, that, the Paul George comments that John Wall is now kind of going against, Jack. I read about that today. It was pretty clear because he definitely was one of the guys I think who was advocating for them that they need a superstar in order to compete, and now it's okay, we don't need that. It's all right. One of those sour loser moments.
2 months is a long time in the NBA, apparently.
Yeah, it is. A short-term memory loss.
Yeah,
it's okay. I was with all the head coaches in college basketball too. I had to throw something in on that. I think, I mentioned before, I didn't like Otto Porter getting max money. Nick made some couple of good points, for the Nets when we had a couple of discussions off the pod. For $24 million, like you said, Jack, this team is strapped for money. I mean, there's a lot of money locked in between Porter, Beal, and Wall, and Washington isn't a huge market. I mean, it's going to be hard to bring in anybody else, or if not make any move. You still got, $28 million locked up between Mohimi and Gortat, two big men who really don't fit the new modern age of basketball. It's another thing to worry about. If Porter was a top 3-point shooter last year, if he could put on some more size and become a decent defender, I mean, if you had to sign Porter, though, because if you lost Porter, Washington is what? I mean, they're no better than the Raptors. They're definitely not competing with the Celtics or Cavs. Like, you had to make this move, but, it just keeps you consistent. It doesn't really make them much better by keeping him at this point.
Yeah, you guys kind of hit it on the head. They were kind of handcuffed. They had to make this type of move. They would have regressed if they weren't able to keep Porter. But I actually disagree with you, Jack. I think if he went to the Nets, I think you would have seen more out of Porter because he'd have more opportunities to touch the ball. In Washington, he's just more of that spot-up guy. And I'm actually big on his game, even though he's staying with the Wizards. I think, efficiency-wise, a guy that's going to shoot a great percentage from the field and then shoot over 40% from three, and the guy didn't even average a turnover a game. Somebody playing 30 minutes not averaging one turnover, I think that's pretty impressive. And one other thing that I really like about him is every year he's gotten better. Every year his statistics go up and he becomes a better player. I think, like you mentioned, defensively he can take another jump, add some more size, and I think ball handling and just playmaking and feeling more comfortable with the ball will help him add to his game, but that's always tough when you play with Bradley Beal and John Wall.
That's the thing, though. I think if he were at the Nets, his efficiency would definitely go down because he'd be asked to do a lot more. Whereas he's in a perfect situation as a third guy. I wouldn't like him as the number one guy. Maybe with D'Angelo Russell. The rumors with adding him and D'Angelo Russell, I don't mind. But at the same time, we've got an Alan Crabb who fits along perfectly with that, and we wanted him in the first place, and we got him at a cheaper rate. But I do agree with the fact that he does have skills that he can improve on, and he is likely to improve on because he has shown it before. And I think defense and passing is that. It's just that his usage, I think, is where his efficiency is tied to, because he's playing alongside two guys who have a higher usage rate. It allows him to sort of be that complementary role, which allows him to sort of be a hyper-efficient guy on the floor.
Yeah, I definitely think that obviously helps him, but I just think in a bigger role, obviously his numbers would dip a little bit, but I think there's more to his game, and I think that's also why the Wizards were willing to match. There's still some hope that Otto Porter can make another jump, and that'd be a key cog for them to get better. Because, looking at the roster, there's not a ton of young talent. He's probably one of the guys that can make a jump and kind of push this team. But you guys mentioned it, cap-wise, I think they might already have $100 million tied up next season, and the projected cap for next year is around 101. So no big free agent moves unless it's coming from a trade. And like I said, no big young assets on this roster. So the Wizards are kind of stuck, and they're not at a championship contending spot. They're at more of an Eastern Conference contending spot. So it's an interesting situation for them. Let's talk departures. Kory mentioned him, Bojan Bogdanovic. They made the trade for him at the deadline. They moved a first-round pick. They picked up Bogdanovic and Chris McCullough, dumped Andrew Nicholson's contract, so that kind of portion works out. But then they don't re-sign Bojan. He goes to Kory's Pacers. What are your thoughts on that situation, and what are they going to lose with him?
They'll miss his shooting a little bit. He was okay for the team in the closing stretch of the season when we got rid of him, Nick. But, I think they're banking on the development of Kelly Oubre to replace him. and then you look at the acquisition of Meeks to sort of replace his shooting. If you combine the two skill sets, those two guys, I think it exceeds what Bojan Bogdanovic would have provided the team this season. And Bojan is aging. He can't defend. He's basically just a Marco Bellinelli type, but maybe a year or two younger, a couple of years younger. So I don't think they'll miss him hugely, but what they gave up for him benefits the Nets, but it doesn't really benefit the Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, keeping Bogdanovic would have helped offensively, but I think they didn't re-sign him primarily because of defense. I mean, in the playoffs, it was tough to keep Bogdanovic on the floor even. I mean, that bench unit was so bad for the Wizards already that, you have guys who can't defend, and if they struggle offensively, your bench does more damage than good. Because I really feel like the bench wore out the starters of that Washington team because you really couldn't take Wall or Beal off the floor.
Yeah, I agree. Bojan's defense is kind of holding him back from because offensively, he can shoot the ball. He can create a little bit for himself once in a while, especially against a bench unit. But when you can't play defense against NBA bench players, it's going to be rough for him to get minutes, especially in the playoffs. So I think the Wizards kind of realized that, it wasn't really worth the money for them. Trey Burke and Brandon Jennings, what are your thoughts on these two? The Wizards going to miss them much, or it doesn't really matter because they picked up Tim Frazier?
Look, team-wise, I don't think they'll miss them that much. But, an NBA without Brandon Jennings isn't a league that I really like because I have an odd love for him. It's sad to see him go to China, but I think, come midway next season when the teams can pick up the vet minimum, I reckon you'll see a team maybe take a punt on Brandon Jennings if he's putting up some big numbers out there in China.
Yeah, I'm sure the Cavaliers will sign him. I'm sure they'll be looking.
D Rose they'll probably trade D Rose for him somehow.
Yeah, I actually met a guy last year who, when I asked who his favorite player was, he said Brandon Jennings, and I was like, you're really out here. I go, there are some of you in the world, aren't there?
There's Brandon Jennings, there's Nick Young, there's JaVale McGee. There's those guys that you can't help but love Kory. I mean, I love them. They make the NBA fun. They're not. The NBA is too serious sometimes with these Paul Georges and KDs. And need some fun with Brandon Jennings. Get around BJ.
Where are the average Joes of the NBA? No, they're not going to miss any of these guys. You'll probably miss Brandon Jennings. The one good night out of 10 where he scores, 12 points and has, 5 assists, a couple of nice dishes. Trey Burke was Trey Burke. And I was actually hoping the OKC was going to sign him, but he backed out of it, so his loss of being on that team. But they're not going to miss these guys. Tim Frazier's a better all-around point guard at this point in time.
Brandon Jennings has just had a really weird career. He went from his rookie year dropping 50, and everybody was like, oh, my God, this kid is going to be amazing, until, every year he just has gotten worse.
That poor Achilles injury really got him, though, I have to admit. The tearing his Achilles was was that one, the final nail in the coffin, if you will.
Yeah, that's a tough injury to come back from. It's just so damping on your whole explosiveness. The only guy, Lou Williams had an Achilles injury, I believe, and he was able to kind of recreate his game and still be effective. But because before that, he was a little bit more explosive than he is now. So just imagine Lou Will with some Jets.
Well, I think the issue is with Jennings. He had the Jets, but he's never been an efficient player.
No,
I mean, this is the guy who's only shot over 40% twice in his entire NBA career. I mean, this was always been a guy who, was a high volume shooter, which is why that Monte Ellis Brandon Jennings combo was so funny. Because you had a backcourt that just didn't care about, passing the ball. They just took shots.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens with him. Like Jack said, he's overplaying in China. There's a good chance he might pick up a playoff deal come around that time. But starters for the Wizards, let's talk about that. And let's talk opening night starters. So no Markieff Morris.
Right, this is a tough one. I'm going
doing that.
I'm going to go Wall, Bill, Porter. I'm going to give it to Mike Scott. But I can't. It's all what happens at training camp. That could be Kelly Oubre if they go with a small ball lineup. Gives them some, a bit of versatility on the wing. And Gortat's going to play the 5. But it's hard to pick. I'm not sure what you guys think. Is it Kelly Oubre or is it Mike Scott? Who starts? Who finishes?
I mean, I personally think Kelly Oubre is going to start. I'm not sure he's going to get a ton of minutes, but I think they're going to go with him off the rip. I mean, who knows? If Mike Scott has an incredible training camp, then maybe. But I don't think you start a guy, just because you need a power forward. Because not like Mike Scott has been playing a ton of minutes the last couple. Last year he played 18 games and 10 minutes per game in those 18 games. I think you got to go with Kelly Oubre. Just go small to start the season.
Yeah, I don't have much hope for Mike Scott starting. Like you said, Kory, he hasn't really played much. He's new to the Wizards. I don't know if his skill level is really right there right now. I would think they would probably go to another bench guy before they went with him, but I think they're going to go with Oubre. I think they'll go small. They'll go Wall, Beal, Oubre, and Porter and Gortat. I don't know who's starting at the 4. Kind of Oubre and Porter kind of swap depending on matchups. They're both like pretty lanky guys, not much size. It's just that they really don't have many 4s that are starting caliber. Markieff Morris is a great starting 4 for them. He fits what they're trying to do. Mike Scott, we just don't know what level he's at right now.
I mean, you could start Jason Smith.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Chris McCollum's going to get some minutes.
That's somebody who maybe that would be like a really like dark horse mystery card, because there's been reports that he's having a really good training camp summer. We heard that a lot in Brooklyn though too. So he's still a guy that has potential, but he just hasn't really shown it consistently on the floor.
Well, somebody's listen, because Markieff Morris is out. Someone on this team is going to need to step up in that role. And if you play good for, like we said, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. If you play good for 4 out of those, 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and you play really good basketball, you could like McCollum, or however you pronounce his last name, and even Mike Scott, they could earn some big time rotational minutes. But if you struggle without Markieff Morris here, these guys aren't even on big contracts. They could be expendable too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is, like I said earlier in the pod, this is kind of positive and negative. Like, it might hurt the Wizards in the win column in terms of Markieff Morris being out, but it's going to give them an opportunity to play some of these young guys and see who can really step up for this bench and help them when it comes to the playoffs and not kind of get gassed out like last year. But breakout starter for the Wizards, who's breaking out?
I'm going to go the real deal, Beal. For me, I don't know about you guys. Do you think he should have made the All-Star last year?
No.
Well, Melo
he's on the cusp, I think. I don't think I would have put him in the All-Star game.
But
he was definitely on the cusp.
Yeah, but Melo was the injury replacement. And for me, Bradley Beal was having a far better season at that point. And I was surprised that he didn't make it. And, my boy Nick Busing, he was making a heap of a deal about it as well. And I was surprised, like, Melo got that sort of, the legacy vote.
Yeah, the respect.
Beal was having... Yeah, for me, Beal was having an outstanding season. So, he played 77 games, as you mentioned, Kory, had a huge impact alongside his backcourt buddy. He's an elite 2 guard, especially from the perimeter. His efficiency was outstanding, posting above 20 PER. He's still only 24 years old, so he's got upside. And, if he's not all-star this year with the departure of all the talent heading west, I'd be surprised. But I'm praying that the Wizards can stay healthy, because they are scary, and Beal is scary when he's healthy and on the court.
I love Bradley Beal. That jump shot is like Ray Allen comparable. I know they bring it up a lot with the true shooting. I'm going with the easy choice. I think it's got to be John Wall. Another season where the East got a little bit worse, like we've mentioned a million times. John Wall hopefully has the healthiest surrounding cast. I think the bench, is slightly better, not much better at all. But I think John Wall's going to add some numbers. I think we could see him at 11 assists per game, one more than his 10.7, and he might even score a little bit more points. If this guy adds a 3-point shot to his game, John Wall's another guy who can be extremely deadly if he adds a decent, consistent jump shot.
I'm gonna cheat right here, and I can do this sometimes, and I'm gonna go with both guys because you guys made great points. I think this backcourt is just gonna continue to get better. Another season healthy, and you both mentioned areas they can improve. Bradley Beal still consistency is an issue for him. If he can stay consistent, stay healthy for another year, keep those numbers up, improve all around, maybe improve a little bit as a passer. And John Wall, like you said, Kory, if he can fix that jump shot and hit a high percentage from 3, I don't really know how you're going to be able to defend him on a nightly basis. Where would you rank? I know we talked backcourts on our previous pod. Where would you rank this backcourt in terms of the league and then in terms of the East?
The East, they're the best. I think the only comparison in the East would be Lowry and DeRozan, but I think Lowry's injury history, he's over 30 years old now, but those guys are going to have a lot to prove, and I reckon they could, easily, I could have pie in my face quite easily. But I think just the youth and upside, as you mentioned, Nick, is just too hard to ignore. In terms of overall NBA, we got The Warriors are the obvious contenders for number one. Chris Paul and James Harden. I like Dame and CJ a lot. They're sort of the West version for it for me. I'm sure. Am I forgetting anyone?
I mean, Jeff Teague and Jimmy Butler is interesting now. No,
Yeah, it's not bad.
I think Jeff Teague kind of holds that back a little bit. Not saying that I think Jeff Teague's a bad player, but I think in comparison to, a Dame Lillard, a Steph Curry, a John Wall, even, Kyle Lowry, I think they're all better than him.
yeah, I mean, yes, I would agree.
I would say
That's tough. I mean, I would say they're in the East. They probably are the best now that Kyrie.
Yeah.
Well, even though there still wasn't anyone next to Kyrie, really. Yeah, no, they got to be the best in the East. I don't think they're better than any of the duos in the West, though.
yeah,
Not even
I think that
Dame?
Than who?
Not even better than CJ and Dame.
I don't think so. I think I think the pairing of Dame and CJ are extremely underrated at times.
I think so as well. But the defense of John Wall, I think he's going to go all out this year. I think he could make all defense, NBA first team all defense. Whereas Dame and CJ really lack in that area. Not that Bradley Beal is a defensive monster by any stretch, but I think Wall's defense, he has the offensive capability of a Lillard and a CJ, minus the 3-point shot. But his defense and all-round game, I think, Dame is a decent passer, but I think he's more of an offensive beast. CJ probably beats out Beal purely for consistency and efficiency. So it's almost like they cancel each other out. So it's like, it's horses for courses. Who do you pick?
Yeah, I think the easy answer for this is the East. I think they're probably number one unless we see a resurgence from Kyle Lowry, which is possible. And DeMar DeRozan, who we talked about in the Raptors pod, is still a very good player and continues to improve. I think this year that's a storyline to kind of watch is like, CJ and Dame versus John Wall and Bradley Beal, who has the bigger year. Because right now it is pretty close. I might go and agree with Kory that I think I might have Dame and CJ a touch above. It's tough to say. I can't remember what I said in the Portland pod, but they've done it more consistently. They've had playoff success more, I feel like, and they've kind of carried that team because the Wizards still have some other decent parts. We look at Portland and there's not really a lot of other guys over there except Nurkic, and he didn't come till later on. But moving forward, I think I like the potential of a John Wall and Bradley Beal more because I see more improvements in their game where Dame and CJ are a little bit more developed.
Yeah.
If I need to see a hot start from Beal and John Wall here. I want to see kind of like, you lost to the Celtics, a little bit of a chip on my shoulder type of attitude come into the season.
Especially with the way the Eastern Conference is. Like, this is an opportunity for them to be like, we're the big dogs. Like, we're one of the best duos out here. We're going to take care of Eastern Conference foes, and we're going to compete for one of those top seeds. If they're able to do that again, I think that says a lot about them. But breakout bench player for the Wizards next year.
I got the guy they picked out from New Orleans. I got Tim Frazier. Last year the Wizards lacked a really quality backup point guard at all. He's not an elite floor general, but he provides the team plenty of things that they didn't have last year. Useful piece for the Pelicans. He'll need to improve the perimeter, but he's on a better squad and he'll have better spacing. And I know you boys love your stats, so Jack always comes up with the stats. So he was actually ranked 8th among all NBA players in assist-to-turnover ratio last season with 3.3. The only players above him on that list were Andre Iguodala, Tyus Jones, Chris Paul, Ish Smith, Beno Udre, Ricky Rubio, and TJ McConnell. So he's in some decent company there, and I think he's going to be a nice addition to the Wizards roster.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be solid. That was my initial choice, but I'm going to go with my backup. I'm going with Ian Mahimi.
Yeah.
Missing, majority of the season, missing, 40 games or almost 50, missing 51 games last season. I mean, you're missing your backup center. They gave him, a pretty big contract after his time with Indiana.
A big contract.
Yeah, an extremely big contract. One of those salary cap booming type of contracts. There's a guy last year only averaged, 5.6 points per game on 4.8 rebounds. This is a guy next year they really need to play, 25 to 30 minutes, especially because Gortat takes another step back. Mahimi, for being in 30, is in relatively good shape. Even last year when he was on the floor, he still moves well. He just needs to be on the floor. Yeah. And I think, defensively, Mahimi is probably a better defender just because he's a big guy. He's pretty brocky compared to Gortat, who, I mean, he is the Polish Hammer. I just don't think he's he's as sharp as he was.
I think athletically, Mahinmi has an edge on him. Do you see any situation where Mahinmi could start over Gortat at some point in the season, or Gortat will be able to hold that position all year long?
No,
If
I
Co-
definitely, I
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure. Go ahead, Jack.
No, sorry, mate. I was probably gonna, you'll probably said the same thing as I do. I honestly see it happening at some stage. I'm not sure if Gortat's ego is going to be able to take it, but depending on matchups, especially if they're playing against teams like the Warriors, the Celtics, they're sort of small ball, quicker teams. I think they need the versatility and lateral quickness that Yamahimi isn't elite, but he's leaps and bounds ahead of Gortat, who is certainly, like you mentioned, Nick, lost that step.
If Gortat plays like he did in the playoffs to start this season, he looks really slow. It might be time just to make a little switch. Mahimi, I mean, when he was with the Pacers, he never played a boatload of minutes. But man, when he was a starter in the 2015-2016 season, I really liked him. He averaged 9 and 7. He's just a really big body. He plays decent defense. He was kind of doing that, the verticality type of defense from like the Roy Hibbert era. He picked up on a couple tricks from him. I wouldn't be surprised if Gortat's slow out the gate if Mahimi can steal that job.
Yeah, Wizards fans, so keep an eye on that center position. For me, I'm going to go with a random bench, breakout guy. I kind of go for dark horses sometimes with this. Tim Frazier was a great choice, but I'm going to go with Chris McCullough. I'm just betting on him. I think, he had a lot of hype, and maybe, this is a make or break year for him. I don't know if he has 1 or 2 years left on his contract, but, he needs to show something in the NBA because he hasn't really shown anything yet. So this is finally his chance to at least give them some decent minutes off the bench.
I like the dark horse picks that you do because, if one of these guys pops off, you can just, throw out a little podcast link and be like, don't say I didn't tell you, people.
I'm thinking all of them are going to pop off, Kory, not just one. So,
all right, I shouldn't have doubted you like that. My fault. I scared you.
Best case scenario, how many wins are the Wizards coming up with next year? What's the best case scenario playoff wise too?
I can't see it being that much greater than last year just because they were so ridiculously healthy and they had a great run with health in terms of their superstar players. So I think they could push. I think you mentioned they were 49-33. I reckon they could push that slightly further. Get into the early 50s. I see a little bit of a development from Oubre, from Porter, from Beal and Wall. But I can't see them getting any higher than, say, like a 53. But they certainly could push for a 2 spot in the East if, say, the Cavs have some chemistry issues or they just don't care and they just want to make the playoffs and destroy the Celtics and meet the Warriors again. Or the Celtics have the same thing. They have some chemistry issues. But, I see them as a legitimate second seed, possibly.
Yeah, I think best case scenario is 52 wins. I don't think they can get much better from last season. I do think, John Wall and Bradley Beal can do a little bit more statistically wise between the both of them, and I think they can look better than last year. I'm not sure it will translate to as many more wins. I think, like you said, Jack, they'll be battling for that 2 seed. I think the 1 seed will be out of reach, but I think they'll be close enough for a 2 seed and probably end up with that 3 seed or a 4 seed.
Yeah, top of the East, 52 wins, best case scenario. They're able to find some bench pieces that can contribute, and they're rolling come playoff time. I think, most likely in best case scenario, either the Cavs or the Celtics struggle. I don't know if both of them will, and they end up with a 2 seed. Most likely, though, they'll probably end in that 3 seed spot. Do you guys see any scenario where the Wizards could end up with a 1 seed, or there's just no chance?
I don't see them ending with the 1 seed, but I think they could end up in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that is probably more likely. I can't see them ending with the 1 seed unless, say LeBron has an injury and, the Cavs are left, with Kevin Love as their number 1 guy, or the Celtics just have Kyrie's otherworldly scientific theories destroying everything in that roster, and he influences Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in a really weird and odd way. I just don't think they have the depth that either of those rosters do. I know Kory mentioned on his Twitter page that the Cavs' depth, has a lot of questions around it, but they are at least proven guys in the league. Whereas the lack of, there's no quantity to the depth of the Wizards at all. So they don't even have the bodies. Whereas the Cavs at least have a lot of bodies that they can go to.
Yeah, wait till I have to give predictions on the Cavaliers. Just wait. I mean, that's going to be a hot show. No, because things are going to be wild on that. But yeah, I think a 1 seed is impossible. Unless there's injuries, and I don't ever look at a season expecting a major player to go down with an injury. I mean, obviously 1 or 2 seem to go down every year regardless, but I try not to think that LeBron can get hurt, even though he tweaked his ankle the other day. Take that for what it is. I think the Wizards will just, they're just not there yet. And the 1 seed, if you get that, I guess I'll eat cat food or something. I don't know. I'll eat some words if they somehow get it.
Get some cat food ready, guys. Wizards fans, get some cat food.
Not wet cat food either. It's got to be dry cat food.
That's on
we'll give you cat treats. Cat treats.
Okay.
We got you.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Before we talk worst case scenario, give me a percentage of chance that the Wizards could end up in the NBA Finals.
I'm gonna go 20%.
Wow.
Might be high, but I think that John Wall has a chip on his shoulder after last year. They were a game away from getting there. I don't trust that Isaiah Thomas can be healthy. I think that LeBron James is strong enough to carry the Cavs there. I don't trust Kyrie Irving. I love him with LeBron, but running his team, I think it's going to come down to Gordon Hayward and how those 2 guys gel together. Whereas the chemistry is already developed between Wall. I mean, they've got a whole season to get it together, but I give them a decent chance. Like, it's not if you ask me about the Boston Celtics, I'd give them a 50% chance, 60% chance, and the Cavs 100% chance. But I think 20% is reasonable.
I'm expecting a savage take right now.
Here we go. Drum roll.
The Wizards are, they're 66-1 odds to win an NBA Finals. So to make an NBA Finals, they're probably at worse odds than that, or better odds. So I'm gonna say they're probably 33-1 odds to make the Finals. I'm giving them a 5% chance, and that's not crazy. I just don't think they're able to beat a team like the Celtics in 7 games. I mean, obviously we have to see how Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward can mesh with Brad Stevens, but the Celtics are still going to be a threat. I think we can't rule them out, obviously. And Toronto isn't falling off; they're still going to be right up everyone's rear end. And the Cavaliers are the Cavaliers. LeBron James got his best friend and a bunch of very good role players. As long as he stays healthy, I don't think they can get to the finals. I just don't see them getting past these guys. And getting into the finals, you still lose in 4 games to the Warriors. Yeah. Wizard fans, so it don't matter.
But it's still a great thing though for a franchise like this. Getting to the finals.
Well, yeah, because when's the last time we saw a small market team? I mean, I guess Cleveland is small market, but you have the greatest player on the planet, so it kind of it annihilates that point. But it would definitely be a great storyline if they made it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you though, Kory. I think I'm more in that 5 to 8% range. I think LeBron still being there. LeBron is healthy. I don't think anybody else is going to the finals from the Eastern Conference. I don't think the Celtics will beat the Cavs if they're healthy, but we'll save that for another pod. Let's talk worst case scenario for the Wizards next year. Just everything's a shit show.
Well, yeah, it could happen. It happened 2 years ago. I can't see them going lower than 40 wins unless one of Ball, Beal, or Wall. Or Ball, we can call them Ball or Wheel, gets injured. But even then, I think having one of them alone has the talent to take this team to the postseason. So I think they're still probably the worst case scenario is they finish, underneath the Raptors, underneath the Bucks, and they finish like a 5th seed.
Yeah, worst case scenario for me is they get 47 wins. They fall off a little bit. Bradley Beal maybe misses some time with an ankle injury or a knee injury. Porter doesn't progress. And the guys kind of stagger. The bench is not very good still. And you just see a couple issues, and they don't fall off, hugely, but they end up being a 4 or 5 seed. Because I still think, even if they slip up to like a 47 win record, they're still going to be in the top 4 to 5 in the East.
Yeah, I think worst case scenario, no huge injury. If Beal misses a few games, Wall misses some games, things are banged up. the lowest they could probably end up is a 5th seed. You know, the only team that really can jump them from underneath is, you know, the Bucks. I think the Raptors are still around their level, and obviously the Celtics and Cavs are another level. Realistically, what do you expect to happen for Washington next year?
I actually think that they might lose a game less than they did last year. I reckon they'll finish with 48 wins, but still with that record, I think that's good enough to finish third in the East.
Yeah, I'm saying they get 50 wins, and they're going to be right there for that 3rd, 4th seed.
I have them at 48 as well. I think the Markieff Morris dropped me down like a few wins. I think they would have been at a 50-win team because I think that's something they want. But I think early on that could really hurt their win total.
Yeah,
just because I think Markieff Morris is a little bit underrated in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm saying 50. I don't have my piece of paper, but I'm pretty sure I said for the Raptors they're going to get 51 wins, and I think this team is a 4 seed behind the Raptors still.
It should be an interesting, you know, top seed playoff race in the East, and then the bottom seeds will be pretty interesting too because we honestly have no idea who's going to be competing for that 8th and 7th spot, you know. But let's talk truth. You know,
what do you got for us, Nick?
Honestly, you know, I wasn't feeling that 100 about this, but I'm gonna go with the 100 emoji just because. You know, John Wall established himself 100% as one of the top guards in the league. The Wizards established themselves as 100%, you know, as one of the top teams in the East. And then I got another one. You know, I know Jack, you love these emojis, so I got the guy with his hands in the air, like, oh, I don't know. Because, you know, the Wizards locked up all this money. They're just like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully we can win some more than what we did, but it's not looking great.
I like it. I'm going to go with the praying hands emoji. You know, I reckon they're going to be praying for a clean bill of health next year. They'll be praying for, you know, turbulence out in Boston and Cleveland. And then they'll be praying that LeBron leaves for the West next year. So it's prayers up in DC.
Yeah, that would be huge if LeBron left.
Oh, yeah, that'd make them a 1 seed. One,
right.
2.
So the one I'm going with is the guy who's like pointing like a 1 finger up. It's like the I'm number 1 kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm picking that one just because it's like one of those like don't forget about me. You know, we see a couple of teams in the East make some moves. You know, obviously Celtics got Kyrie Irving. The Celtics have made their super team. And then the Raptors retained their key guys. And it kind of no one has really talked about the Wizards much this offseason. Even the Tim Frazier signing kind of went underneath the radar. You know, re-signing Otto Porter was just like, okay, they had to do that. No one really talked about them. So it's kind of like that, don't forget about us, because we did make a hell of a run last year in the playoffs, coming just short from beating the Celtics. So it's one of those, just don't sleep on us.
That's a good one, because I honestly still think that people sleep on John Wall. Like, some people don't think that he's a top 5 point guard. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's odd. I don't know if it's the fact that – do you guys think it's the fact that he's playing in Washington and it's the franchise itself? But because if you're a guy who watches the NBA, keeps an eye on the NBA, watches League Pass, you know, keeps an eye on actually what's happening, you know, you're not just one of those fanboys, fangirls that just sees the replays and what's on SportsCenter. You got to respect the game. Put some respect on the name for John Wall, because he is elite. He's not, you know, Russell Westbrook, James Harden just yet, but there's the potential for him to move into that category this season, I reckon.
I always laugh when people compare and when people say John Wall's not better than Kyrie Irving. And
yeah,
I don't think that's a hot take when I say that. You know, Kyrie Irving is a fantastic offensive, you know, he's a tireless scorer. That guy can give you buckets. He hit that huge game-winning shot over Steph Curry. But when it comes to playing defense, when it comes to getting his teammates involved, he is not John Wall. John Wall is simply better at getting others involved, playing defense. He's one of the best chase-down blocking point guards in the league, if not the best. The guy can do it all. And if he has a three-point jump shot, then he's head and shoulders above Kyrie Irving in my book.
Yeah, I think the fact that John Wall plays such great defense and Kyrie doesn't really play a lick except when it's playoff time, I think that's a big adjustment. In the fact that Wall, like you mentioned earlier in the pod, Jack, I think, you know, improves his teammates. Obviously, this year is going to be a big year for Kyrie, and that's kind of another storyline to follow, because obviously Kyrie has heard the talk that a lot of people don't have him as one of the top guards, but he believes he's, you know, one of the best players in the league and that he can lead a team. So this year, I kind of can't wait to have this conversation about 50 games into the season.
For sure.
But let's move on to League Pass. Give us your League Pass ranking for the Wizards.
8 out of 10. That's my highest rating so far. I love these Wizards. I'm always watching them, whether it's with my boy Nick, the Aussie Nick, to clarify, or not. I'm a big fan of Wall. Those left-hand dunks as well, like his sort of signature move, that throwdown. I don't know that many guys that have a right-handed proficient, but can dunk so viciously with their left hand. Like he's a treat to watch. And Beal, like you were mentioning earlier, Kory, that stroke is it's butter. It's just wet.
It is. Man, that's 8. I like it. I'm not going as high, but this is also my highest League Pass rating so far, aside from the Pacers. I'm giving them a 7. The bench dulls it out a little bit for me, but when John Wall and Bradley Beal are on the floor, the Wizards are a team you want to watch. And I think having Otto Porter sit in the corner like last year, I mean, the guy took advantage of the wide open threes that he got. They're definitely going to be fun to watch. They're one of the better teams at pushing the tempo. John Wall is known as a one-man fast break himself. They're definitely going to be a team you want to tune into.
I have them at an 8 out of 10 as well, and that's with my skewed scale. I don't know why. I just love watching Washington. John Wall, Bradley Beal. It's pretty exciting. And like you said, Jack, the throwdowns, like John Wall's one of the point guards that can kind of just throw down on anybody, and especially because he's so quick, he just gets that one step and bang.
He is quick. He is super quick.
Yeah, he's just a ton of fun to watch, especially on the fast break when you see, a team have 4 guys maybe back, 3 guys back, and they're all in the paint, and John Wall just kind of flashes past them all and just lays it in. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do other than foul? There's not really much.
He's the Flash.
Yeah. So, mention the Flash talking TV shows. You'd watch the Washington Wizards over what TV show that you like?
One of my favorite shows ever that I've watched a million times is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I watch it every single night. The Netflix synopsis of it, I've got it like down pat. It's a group of narcissistic friends who run a Philadelphia bar where their juvenile behavior brings comeuppance and juvenile delinquents. It's hilarious. I love it so much. I'll probably watch it before I go to bed tonight as well, but I would much rather watch the Wizards play one of their 82 games. And
it's funny, Jack, that you just said It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because that is the TV show that I was leaning towards. But I'm not going to pick the same one as you, and I think that show is too good to be gone right now. That's one of my all-time favorite shows. It's hard for me to pull a trigger now because I'm, like me and Nick have mentioned, I'm running out of shows here.
We're getting high.
So, yeah, I'm rolling with a personal favorite of mine, another FX show. I'm going with Archer. Nick has already thrown shame on this show by using it way too early. But I'm going to use Archer. Do you want ants? No, I want John Wall and the Washington Wizards. It's a funny show. I love the guy, I can't remember his first name, but I think it's John Benjamin who does the voiceover for Archer. The guy's hilarious.
He's on Bob's Burgers as well. Does Bob? He's awesome.
Yeah, but I watched that show a few times through. And if John Wall's out there running the fast break, I'm definitely going to tune into that.
Yeah, I mean, I threw Archer in there a little bit as retaliation, but and it was well earned, especially after Jack, you weren't here with me, and Kory threw shade at Dragon Ball Z.
Oh no!
I think it was for the Raptors too, like the Raptors,
yeah,
oh my God, Kory, that was just so hurtful, and it seemed like Matt really didn't care, and I wasn't ready to go on a spiel, but I was like, damn, Goku probably's pissed right now, like I'm about to throw a spirit bomb at you and get this finished up, but. Those are Saiyan fighting words right there.
Me and you, guys, when we get the fusion dance going, we get the fusion ring, and we'll get it all together, and Kory's going to be a goner.
You're mentioning the one part of the saga, which I was never a fan of, was the fusion saga. So
I love Goten and Trunks. Goten.
Yeah, overrated.
Oh my God, Kory.
I love the cockiness.
Who's your favorite character on Dragon Ball Z?
Mine?
Yeah. This will tell us all we need to know.
Funny. Damn. Vegeta, probably.
Oh my God, that's who I was gonna say. If you like Vegeta, you don't like the show enough. That's exactly. If you said Goku or Gohan.
No. Well, I mean, okay, no. Goku's an easy answer. Goku is what got me into the show, but I really like the development of Vegeta, especially like after the Cell Saga. Like
That's
Majin Buu, Vegeta was really good
Yeah.
because sacrificing for Trunks and everything.
Majin Vegeta.
Relax. Put some respect on my name here. Come on.
Oh, I don't know. You went with Vegeta. No.
He's like KD version.
Oh yeah.
Article.
Yeah, just quick shout out to Jack's article, Dragon Ball Z comparisons for NBA players. That was by far probably one of the most popular articles on the site by, the readers and the writers. A lot of people told me they love that, so check that out. But back to my show.
It was trash. It was
Oh,
fake news. No, it was good,
What
Jack.
was the last time you wrote an article, Kory? I want to see it up
Jack,
there.
it was one of my first articles I read actually by you. It was really good.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really good. Jack did a great job getting, the pictures and the GIFs in there, kind of keeps everything exciting. But for me, show-wise, I'm going to go with a show that I like. Kory knows I like this show, and I'm going to go with Parks and Rec. I'll watch the Wizards over Parks and Rec. I really like that show too, so I'm not throwing shade at it. I'm just kind of showing how much I love the Wizards.
It's possible, Nick. I'm not saying this is for sure, but you might have used that show twice.
I have. Oh my God, that would be a sin. Okay, I have a backup show, The Killing. I might have used that show again too. I'm honestly losing track at this point.
It's okay. If anyone listening, if you can spot us using the same show for more than one pod, please call us out and thank you for listening to more than one pod.
Well, I'll throw this out there. If you can tell me the shows that we use more than once, I will give you a giveaway.
I know you guys have used Orange is the New Black more than once.
Okay, Jack, you're not supposed to give it out now.
Well, I want the giveaway. I'm a writer, but I want the giveaway.
No, OTG writers and family excluded. So I got a giveaway for you. There is there is more than one. If Orange is the New Black is used twice, then that is one. But there is multiple shows that I think we used twice. So if you get that,
I have used one show for sure.
Yeah,
I know Kory's one as well. I won't say it.
Yeah, so if you get that, I have a giveaway for you. It's basketball related, and you'll get that. DM me on the account, tweet us, let us know, and we'll see who gets the victory there. But I'm going with Parks and Rec. Maybe I used it, and if not, I used The Killing. I don't know if you guys ever watched The Killing. It's a really good Netflix original. It's like a detective show. It's pretty in depth if you like that type of thing. If not, you'll hate it. But
I got through half a season, and it was just like, why have I not found out who has committed this murder yet? And then. It kind of got old, so I stopped watching it.
Well, like if you were able to stay all the way through, the ending is like pretty crazy. But I'll just leave that out there for some. I'm trying to get some advertisements for Netflix, but that wraps it up for today. Thank you, Kory. Thank you, Jack, for hopping on. Thanks everybody for listening. And like I said, hit us up if you want that giveaway. Also, leave us some feedback on Twitter, iTunes, review us, let us know how we're doing.
Ciao, OTG fans.
I'm chasing you guys down for the John Wall behind the back block. I'll block that spirit bomb. John Wall status.